Tensions in the Red Sea region have reached new heights as Yemen's Houthi group escalates its military confrontation with the United States, launching a series of attacks against the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier. The latest military clash, which occurred over the course of 9 hours, marks a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict between the Houthis and U.S. military forces operating in the region. The USS Harry S. Truman, one of the U.S. Navy's most advanced aircraft carriers, has been deployed in the Red Sea as part of a broader military presence aimed at securing American interests in the region. However, the Houthi group has made it clear that they view this presence as a provocation, and they have taken aggressive action to demonstrate their opposition. In their most recent attack, the Houthis claim to have successfully targeted the aircraft carrier with a combination of cruise missiles and drones. This marks the fifth strike against the USS Harry S. Truman since it arrived in the region, highlighting the persistent and mounting threat posed by the Houthis to U.S. military assets in the area. While the U.S. Navy has yet to confirm the full extent of the damage from the attack, reports suggest that the assault was intense, with significant explosions occurring in the vicinity of the carrier. The Houthis, who have previously claimed responsibility for similar attacks on American military vessels, have consistently used their growing missile and drone capabilities to challenge U.S. presence in the Red Sea and beyond. These strikes are part of a broader effort by the Houthis to assert their military influence in the region, particularly as the war in Yemen continues to rage on. The latest attack on the USS Harry S. Truman comes just days after a violent incident in Yemen's Al-Baida region, where major explosions rocked the area, leaving a devastating toll on the local population. According to reports from local authorities, at least 15 people were killed and 40 others injured in the blasts, which occurred at several gas stations in Al-Baida. The explosions have been attributed to airstrikes, though the identity of the perpetrators remains unclear. However, given the intensity of the conflict in Yemen, it is widely believed that the explosions were a direct result of ongoing clashes between Houthi forces and the Saudi-led coalition, which has been supporting the Yemeni government against the Houthis in the ongoing civil war. The attacks on the USS Harry S. Truman and the explosions in Al-Baida are part of a broader pattern of violence that has plagued Yemen for years. Since the outbreak of the civil war in 2014, the country has been torn apart by competing factions, with the Houthis on one side and the internationally recognized Yemeni government, supported by Saudi Arabia and other allies, on the other. The war has created one of the world's most dire humanitarian crises, with thousands of civilians killed and millions displaced from their homes. The Houthi group's decision to target U.S. military assets in the Red Sea underscores the growing friction between the Houthis and the United States, which has supported the Saudi-led coalition's efforts in Yemen. While the U.S. has provided military aid to the coalition in the past, it has also called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict and has been critical of the humanitarian impact of the war. The Houthis, on the other hand, have accused the U.S. of exacerbating the conflict by backing the Saudi-led coalition and imposing sanctions on their forces. The United States has not remained passive in the face of the Houthi escalation. In response to the latest attack, the U.S. Navy has reportedly increased its patrols in the Red Sea and is conducting a thorough assessment of the damage to the USS Harry S. Truman. American military officials have expressed concerns about the growing sophistication of the Houthi missile and drone capabilities, which have made it increasingly difficult for U.S. forces to maintain the security of their vessels in the region. Despite the heightened tensions, diplomatic efforts continue in an attempt to de-escalate the conflict. International actors, including the United Nations and various humanitarian organizations, have called for an immediate ceasefire and a resumption of peace talks between the warring parties. However, with both sides entrenched in their positions and external powers involved, finding a lasting resolution to the conflict remains a challenging and elusive goal. The humanitarian situation in Yemen remains dire, with millions of people suffering from the effects of the war, including widespread famine, disease, and displacement. In addition to the direct casualties caused by the fighting, the war has also disrupted basic services, including healthcare and food distribution, exacerbating the suffering of civilians caught in the crossfire. As the conflict intensifies and the stakes continue to rise, the international community is increasingly concerned about the broader implications of the war. The attacks on the USS Harry S. Truman, as well as the deadly explosions in Al-Baida, are a stark reminder of the volatility of the situation in Yemen and the potential for further escalation, not just within the country but also in the wider region. With both the Houthis and the United States seemingly committed to their respective military campaigns, the path to peace appears uncertain, and the chances for a peaceful resolution to the conflict remain slim. In the coming days, more information is expected to emerge about the extent of the damage to the USS Harry S. Truman and the broader military consequences of the Houthi attacks. Meanwhile, efforts to address the humanitarian crisis in Yemen and bring the warring parties back to the negotiating table continue to face significant obstacles. As the world watches, the situation in Yemen remains one of the most pressing and unresolved conflicts in the Middle East.